Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay in Toronto. And in the days following the Iraqi elections, the fight over who will be Prime Minister continues. Now joining us to help us understand this struggle further is Amjad Ali. He's the international representative for the Iraqi Freedom Congress. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And you also represent a coalition of Iraqi unions abroad as well.
That's right.
So tell us about the Iraqi Freedom Congress. First of all, what is it and how did it come into being?
Iraq Freedom Congress is an organization, it's an umbrella organization formed in 2005. Because of the issues in Iraq, the religious groups and religious parties and nationalist parties who were fighting over power, who wanted to divide people according to their national or ethnic background or religious background, we decided as Iraq Freedom Congress to establish an umbrella organization that brings people together to be another part of the society that denounce all ethnic divisions and religious divisions.
It's non-sectarian, it's Shia,
it's non-sectarian.
Kurdish,
We have everyone involved into Iraq Freedom Congress, Muslims, Christians, Yazidis, Sabi'is, these minority religions there. We do have Shiites, Sunnis, we have Kurds, we have Arabs, we have Turks, and all these.
And what are some of the organizations that are members?
We do have the General Federation of Worker Councils. This is a major part, the backbone of it.
Which involves which?
Unions of rail workers, part of oil workers, part of electricity workers, construction workers, teacher unions.
And roughly the numbers of the Freedom Congress, total numbers of people involved.
We don't have a fixed or an exact number, but it goes from 50 to 60,000 members.
So in the recent elections, what did the Freedom Congress think of the elections, and what does the Freedom Congress think of the results?
We have issued our statement prior to the election, and we said this election is not going to bring anyone else but the same people who are in power today. They are militias. They still have their own militia. The Kurds do have their own militias. The Al-Dawa party have one, which is the government. Islamic Supreme Council, they do have their own militias. They say they are.
People have often said the government's militia includes the U.S. Army.
This is part of it, and we do have like a lot of special security forces there who are coming from Blackwater and whatnot. So these are each one has its own armed groups, and we said right in the beginning or right prior to that election, we said the same people who are now in power, they are going to be back in power, and that's why we saw like the decline of the number of voters who cast the ballot from the first one that was 68%, as they said back then in 2005. But today they say 50%, almost 50%. But even to certain areas, it has not reached to that number. Actually, in some ballots, there were even 0% participants in that election.
Now, there also were some participants who didn't know they had participated. What's your story?
I've been living here in Canada since '95. And prior to the election, 2 months prior to the election, I called my brother who lives in Kirkuk, and he told me that he received my election card, which this is the card, you bring it to the, when you cast the ballot, you bring it to the monitors and, you vote. And I said, well, how did they find my name? It's been 15 years, or almost 15 years. And he said, well, I got your card, and anyone could vote for you. And I said, instead of me. And I said, well, this is crazy. He said, well, there's a lot of cards were distributed to those people who are not here. And it happened. They tick off your name.
So it raises the participant level, but it also means you can have some fraud because people can use these cards any way they
absolutely. Please. I have my sister-in-law. She's one of the monitors in Baghdad, and in particular in Adamiya district, which is a Sunni-dominated district, and she was telling me she had those people who represent a number of fractions participate in that election, and she said they were ticking off the names even if they were not there. They are putting like fake names there. They are if they are not if you are not there, they tick off your name and they put you as voted to this fraction or that fraction.
Now Maliki's been accusing his opponents of doing this, but is there any reason to think they did it more than he did?
You know what? They all part of this game. Maliki himself, prior to the election results, that was interesting when he said, well, there are some frauds, but it will not, he didn't think back then it would affect the election result. This is what he said exactly.
Because he thought he was going to win.
Yeah, exactly. But after the election, he decided, no, this election is a fraud, and he has to do a recount, a hand recount. And
just for people, in case who haven't followed, Maliki actually lost to his opposition by what, 3-4 seats, I think.
Actually, Alawi himself got 91 seats, and he himself got 89 seats. And they decided the recount. The recount started last Monday, and right after they restarted, they said, well, there is an irregularity there, and the reason why, because they had to match the names with the list.
Now, one of the most controversial things that happened before the election, and it's been happening afterwards, is this attack on candidates that had something to do with the Ba'ath Party in the past, Saddam's party. I believe a few at least, who were actually elected are now they're trying to disqualify, and there were many candidates they wouldn't let run. What's the attitude of the Freedom Congress towards this?
You know what? We always say that those who committed crimes must be prosecuted. There is no way around that. But in order to form a government, in order to form a secular, non-ethnic government, you need all these fractions to participate. But these fractions must not discriminate against others, must not have committed any crime. And we don't mind if Ba'athists, non-Ba'athists, if they want to come with a real intention or a sincere intention to form a society that's free of discrimination, free of racism, free of killings and crimes and corruption and all these things. So the Iraq Freedom Congress does not discriminate against those. They are former Ba'athists. Most of the Iraqis had to be Ba'athist. I am one of the people who, when I was in the university back in 1984, and I was in the College of Education. In order to finish my college, I had to be a Ba'ath member. There is no way around it. You are not, if you don't want to be a Ba'ath member, okay, you have to leave the college. And there is, if you leave the college, there is another way you have to go. You have to be in the army. Back then, between 80 and 88, we had a war in Iraq, between Iraq and Iran. So if I had to leave the college back then, I had to go to army, and I could have been killed. That was possible. 1 million casualties were in that war. So I am one example in millions of examples back in the 80s.
Maliki knows that by going after these candidates, it helps facilitate and create the conditions for more conflict with the Sunnis and potentially, you know, the grounds for a kind of civil war. So what is Maliki's objective here?
Well, here the thing is, when we talk about Maliki and if he cares about the election, if he doesn't care about the people, if he cares about what the entire government, those people who are in power today, they don't really care about people. But we've seen that. We've seen that since 2003. We've seen that in the this kind of sectarian war in 2005. They did not care about people. Thousands and hundreds of thousands were killed, were displaced, were kidnapped. The government back then did not do anything about it, did not even move one step towards reconciliation. That wasn't the attitude of the government we know in Iraq, that these are not pro-people. Each one has his own agenda, and that's why they're...
Well, there's a lot at stake. The thinking is Iraq has as much oil as Saudi Arabia. So the leaders of these factions have a lot to fight over. So in the next segment of our interview, let's talk about what is the threat of civil war in Iraq. Please join us for this continuation of our series of interviews on the Real News Network.